Hello everyone. Today we will be going over factoring. Since it's our first lesson with factoring, we're going to be looking at very simple ones to get used to it. Keep in mind from past lessons that the standard form of quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. Whenever you do factoring with quadratics in this case, just do a quick check to make sure it's in that order, which as we see with our first example it is. So we have x squared, then our x, and then just our constant c. Reasons we would factor is because we want to know where it intersects the x-axis, which means it's a zero. It also means it's a solution. Today we'll be going over what I like to call the x method. It's my personal favorite. You may have learned one in a different math class, which is perfectly alright. Mostly start off pretty similar. We're just going to make sure that we label our a, b, and c. This just makes sure it's easy for us. We have everything. We know what we're working with. So in this case, a is in front of the x squared. Remember, there's nothing there. That's a 1. b in front of the x is a positive 8. c is our constant, which is a positive 7. So with this x method, we're going to have this big X. On top, we're going to have a times c. On the bottom, we're going to have b. So a times c, 1 times 7 is 7, and b, 8. Easy way to remember, b, bottom, b is on the bottom. So what we're looking for are two numbers that will multiply to this top number, add to the bottom number. So these two numbers, whatever we put, will multiply to the top number and add to the bottom. So we like to list off the factors of 7, which in this case is pretty easy. Easy is just 1 and 7. 1, 7. So quick look, 1 times 7 is 7. 1 plus 7 is 8. So it works pretty well. When we write these, make sure you put factors in parentheses. This is really important because parentheses are grouping. Makes it so that we don't have any weird distribution issues. It does not matter what order you have these. So the way I personally have it written, we'd have x plus 1, plus because it's positive, and x plus 7. If you write this the other way, x plus 7 and x plus 1, perfectly okay. Commutative property multiplication says either way we have that is fine. However, we do want the x first. So we should have x plus 1. 1 plus x would be okay, but it's just kind of messy. We don't really like that most of the time. We like to have x first. So let's take a look at another example. We are always going to start off the same way. Label a, b, and c. So a is 1, b is negative 11. Make sure it's from minus, it's a negative. And c is positive 10. So we're going to draw our big X. A times C is 10. B, bottom, negative 11. So like before, we're going to list out factors of 10. So we have 1 and 10, 2 and 5, and that's it. So we want two numbers that will multiply to 10, but add to negative 11. Okay, so this case is a negative number. Things to keep in mind. These two numbers could be positive or negative. Doesn't matter. So since we want to multiply to a positive, we need to multiply two positive numbers or two negative numbers. Since we want to add to a negative, we know both these have to be negative. So negative 1 plus negative 10 would be negative 11, space. Negative 2 plus negative 5 would be negative 7. Since this adds up to negative 7, yes, it multiplies to the right number, but it adds to the wrong number. Can't use that. So we know we're going to have negative 1, negative 10. Again, just like last time, whenever you're writing these out, make sure you put them in parentheses. So x, this time since it's negative, it's going to be minus 1. Again, x, negative, minus 10. You could write this as plus -1 and plus -10, but when we get into solving, that kind of complicates things a little bit, so it's easier just to keep it as a minus. Again, if you put it as plus and negative, it's not wrong. It just makes our life a little more difficult. So I would suggest getting in the habit of just writing a plus or a minus. Again, just like last one, if you put these the other way around, 100% okay. It does not matter. Let's go ahead and take a look at another example. We're going to do 2 more, so a total of 4. 4. Okay, so I just wrote them both out for us. We're always going to start these the same way. Never changes with quadratics for the most part. 99% won't be this way. I'm going to label our A, B, and C. So A is 1. B is a plus 4, so positive 4. C is -12. Minus 12, so we have a negative. We get our big X going on. Then A times C, -12. B, positive 4. Okay, thing to keep in mind, we want to multiply to a negative. So we know one of these has to be a negative. The only way we can get a negative with multiplication is 1 negative, 1 positive. So factors of 12, so what multiplies to 12 would be 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Okay. So we can use any combination of these. We know we want to add to positive 4. Okay, so we want a difference of 4 between the numbers pretty much. Since it's a positive number we want to add to, that positive number is going to be the bigger one. So we know either 12, 6, or 4 are going to have to be positive, which means our 1, 2, or 3 have to be negative. And again, we know this because we want to add to a positive. So we can just do a quick check. -1 plus 12, that's -11, or positive 11. We don't want that. -2 plus 6 is 4, which is perfect. That's what we want. Come down here. -2, positive 6. -2 times 6 is -12. -2 plus 6, positive 4. So it works out perfectly. Again, finally, last step, write it out. X minus 2, X plus 6. Again, write it this way, it means multiplication. Again, we'll get more into this when we get into actually solving. Right now, we're just focusing on the factoring aspect. And if you switch it around, 100% okay. Just remember that plus 6 minus 2. Mix up the signs, completely different answer. We don't want that. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look over at this other example here. So again, A is 1. B is minus X, which means it's a -1. C is -90. So something you probably notice about this is -90 is a very big number. It's kind of a lot of factors, a whole bunch of them. One thing you should also notice is that this B is just -1. So we're going to write it out. So A times C, -90. B, -1. Similar to this last problem, where we're going to have 1 negative, 1 positive to multiply to a negative. But this time, we want to add to a negative, so the negative is going to be a bigger number. With adding to 1, or in this case, -1, we know our two numbers have to be right next to each other. Only way we can add up to 1 is if we have like a -2, positive 3. Positive 6, -5. So these numbers have to be next to each other. So with 90, so we think what two numbers that are right next to each other can multiply to 90. This case should pop into your head pretty quick. Pretty simple one to see, I hope, would be 9 and 10. 9 times 10 gives us 90. And these numbers are right next to each other. Difference of 1 between them. We want -90. And we want to add to a -1. So we want the bigger number to be negative. So we know that this 10 needs to be the negative. 9 times -10, -90. 9 plus -10, -1. Perfect. If you want to list out all the factors of 90, completely okay. Knock yourself out. It will not have any impact on your final answer at all. So that is 100% okay to do. Do whatever makes you comfortable, especially when we're first learning this. I would suggest, for the most part, to still list them out. So we have -10, +9. Again, final step, write it out. X minus 10 times x plus 9. So our final takeaways from this lesson with factoring. So today they're all pretty simple. All our a's were 1. In the next day or two, we'll get into when a is not equal to 1. Same basic premise, little different. You'll get it no problem, I'm sure. First thing I want to take away is to label. Label A, B, C every time. I've done this for going on 20 years now. I still label A, B, and C. It's a quick thing, takes 5 seconds, make sure you don't mess anything up. Second takeaway with this X method is that we essentially have 4 different X's we could have. We could have a positive and a positive on top, positive and a negative, negative, positive, negative, negative. In this case, I'm just talking about like if we have 3 and 4, for example. These are both negatives. We can tell what these signs of these numbers on the sides have to be. So if you want to multiply to a negative, or excuse me, if you want to multiply to a positive and add to a positive, these have to be positive. If you want to multiply to a positive and add to a negative, both have to be negative. And anytime you want to multiply to a negative, you need one of each. One negative, one positive. In this case, the positive is bigger, since we want to add to a positive. In this case, we want to add to a negative, so the negative has to be bigger. If you can't remember that, that's fine. Just experiment a little bit. It's pretty quick to add 2 numbers scale. You'll get it without an issue. So these are our big takeaway for today's lesson, label and our signs. We'll add one third one. Just remember, we want to multiply to the top number and add to the bottom. We'll be doing this so much this will become second habit without any issue, no time at all, you will get it. Today in the description below, just like always, there's a 3-question check for understanding. Please get that done as soon as you can. I'll post the answers to those in a day or two just so we know what we're going with. I believe you'll all get it without an issue though. You guys have been pretty good so far. If you have any questions, please post it in the comments below. Feel free to email me, contact me any way that you need to. I hope this was all clear. If it's not, I'll look at those check for understandings and I'll release another video in a couple days. Until then, again, comment below if you have questions, email me, call me, whatever works best for you. Thank you very much.